Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or over in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard.
Got that old coffee thing going. Welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It is September 24th, 2024, and this is episode 84. And we have only just begun to have fun. We jump into this too quickly. I think I hit that button and we're still talking.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, what, Steve? Yes, we're going to have a party when we hit 100. He's already overly excited about it. Yeah. I told you we will. I know these, and we'll do it in the new studio.
He has a party in there every week. I mean, it's just, by the time the show's over, we got to take
over. At least he
and
shows up most of the time. Well, I don't know. Is it considered showing up if he's here but not really here?
Well, I mean, yeah, he's aware of things when he gets here, but that's where everything starts going downhill.
Yeah, as it wears on, it's yes, we're making fun of you. Get over it.
Oh, a special welcome to those on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. If it's Thursday at 5 p.m. and you're listening to us, welcome to you. We have listened at that time to ourselves, which is it sounds pretty egotistical, but we have done that. We have done that because we record on Tuesday mornings.
Wow,
just so you know.
We sound really good on there. I don't know what they did to us, but it's like we almost sound professional on everything.
We did sound professional last week. So, oh my gosh. And, we normally have a new segment called Auntie Kamala's Wisdom of the Week. We're actually going to push that towards the middle of the show.
There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that because of the situation that it was recorded in. So we're going to skip that for the beginning. But anyway, the second would-be assassin of Donald Trump was held without bail yesterday, which is definitely a good thing. They released what some are calling the Dear World letters. Have you seen some of this? I mean,
some of his, well, it's not really a manifesto. No. It's like, you're reading this, I'm gone type thing. Yeah. I don't really know what he was doing.
I'd heard some of it where it's sort of like, this is kind of my calling. And if you pick up the baton, if something happens to me and you take out the orange man or whatever, I'll pay you $150,000. I think he should save that $150,000 for his trial because he's going to need a good lawyer just to avoid the needle.
Or several good lawyers. Yeah. So, and by the way, what does he do and where did he get $150,000 is what I want to know.
I think
making promises he can't keep, or has he been paid for other activities?
That's a good question. I think people have looked into it, and he doesn't have $150,000. So I don't know where that's coming from, but it suffice it to say that common sense will lead you down the path that somebody paid him to do it. And now apparently if he's dead, he wouldn't need it. So the $150,000 would may go to the next person. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But the one thing I heard on the radio, I think it was Friday, they said that the FBI or Secret Service has come out with a stat saying that they believe there's 5 assassin teams looking for President Trump that in the U.S. right now, that are kind of roaming around and looking for whom it may devour. I think that's scary. It's a scary world we live in, that they want to take out somebody running for president. I think it's terrible.
The rhetoric is not going anywhere. And what they did during the recent debate didn't help matters at all either. Didn't help ABC either. They've lost several millions of dollars and about 30% of their audience.
Yeah, I think the next day they lost 12% right off the top.
Yeah, bam, like that.
And David Muir is being kind of held responsible. He was kind of the lead on that, and of course, his partner was a sorority sister of Kamala. So I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of intrigue there.
Yeah,
But
well, and what I
you kind
heard
of
was she
figured.
was ceremoniously, you shouldn't have given those things out. You're gone.
Oh, is she
You're gonna give.
gone? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's my understanding. I'm trying to find actual fact of that. I've seen it too many times, but not from sources I would say are dead on. So
interesting. Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised though. I mean, that when it comes to money, these places don't play. But they should have known better. They knew David Muir from years ago, and they know that he doesn't shoot straight no matter what anyway.
yeah,
But with
crooked left
her,
all time league.
yeah, I know it was ABC, and Trump has already said now that he's not going to do another debate. And she wants one. She called him out. I think was it yesterday or sometime
Yeah,
over the
she
weekend.
said, "Well, I've already made arrangements on CNN, so we're going to do it." He goes,
No,
"Oh, good for you.
he
I haven't, and I don't plan on it."
wasn't CNN. Wasn't it the first debate? That was CNN and
I'm trying to remember. I think the one that Megan Kelly was the moderator was probably the most fair for both sides.
yeah, but
She
I mean
played
that
it
that
pretty
was
close.
that was in
I thought
2020.
that was Fox.
It was back then. I'm talking about this year, though. I mean,
Oh,
where was the first debate? I think that was CNN.
oh, with yeah, I think that was CNN with Joe.
Yeah, yeah, with Joe.
Yeah, I think that was CNN. Yeah,
So that's what Trump is coming back. So I've already done 2 debates. If you don't know me by now, I guess the whole thing.
yeah.
And Kamala wants it. I don't. I guess because she believes that she won, in a way. But I mean, when you've got 3 against 1, it's hard not to win. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Kind
Um,
of having the odds stacked against you.
Yeah, definitely. And it was obvious too. So, well, as a lot of you know, I was a teamster for 25 years under the Brewery and Soft Drink Workers Division. And every time there was an election, as you might imagine, we got emails and flyers and all kinds of stuff handed out to us about who to vote for. And whoever, and it was always whoever the Democratic nominee was. Here in Georgia, though, most of us hourly workers, of course, we live in a very red area where I live. Most of us just kind of like rolled our eyes collectively and just kind of whatever, dude, And even our business agent, who is kind of the leader of the local union, I've known that guy for years, and I know he's as Republican as Richard and I are. So I mean, he has to go through. He had to go through the motions and the whole thing with Obama and with Joe and the whole thing, but. Anyway, this year is a little bit different. As you know, that the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, spoke at the National Republican National Convention. That has never happened before. And I thought that was pretty good, but it wasn't quite an endorsement. But he was there making his speech, which I thought spoke volumes, even if he didn't necessarily endorse.
Well, yeah, the Democrats didn't even invite him. They just kind of assumed that, you'll do what we tell you and everything's good. And they're going, uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and we'll come to this later, but I think that somebody had asked Kamala about, there's a lot of black men that they know. There's a black woman that was asking the question. There's a lot of black men that she knows that are considering voting for Trump. What do you think? And even Kamala came back and said, there's no demographic. And I'm paraphrasing here because she did make it kind of go on and on. But but she said there's no demographic that's just a pocket win. You just can't count on those kind of things, even though I think behind the scenes they are. And Teamsters is definitely in that category. The polling among the rank and file turned out being 58.5% Trump and 32.5% for Harris. That's kind of unbelievable to me. What's next? Pigs flying and dogs and cats getting along. I mean, I don't.
You had Biden was going and talking to Teamster members earlier in the when he was doing visiting of some stuff, and when he had driven a semi, and it's like, no, you haven't.
No,
you wouldn't have a clue how to even start one of the things.
He probably can't climb up in there without pooping his pants. I mean,
so, and then was, what he was doing against the worker and the Teamsters, and they were getting in his face about it. And then he got nasty back and no, these are the facts. This is what
right.
you said. And he got real cranky, and that's about when they lost, I think, the Teamsters. Because I was a Teamster for several years too. But
Sure. And all the truck drivers I knew that were Teamsters, because I worked in the warehouse and I dealt with a lot of these guys, and we would talk politics all the time. I mean, Obama, when he got elected, we all talked about that kind of thing, and and it spread across all kinds of demographics you can think of. But these were just hardworking guys that were, and ladies, but they were just driving a truck, and the rest of us were just kind of doing our 40, 50, 60 hours a week trying to make ends meet. And the regular people in this country are not necessarily love what the Democratic Party is standing for anymore. But Sean O'Brien did have this statement last week on CBS's Face the Nation. Here it goes.
I'm going to say this. Whatever the critics out there, and they're very few in the leadership, whenever I get an opportunity to highlight the American worker, especially the Teamster worker, I'm going to take any and all venue. We asked both conventions respectively at the same time, and the Republican National Convention immediately responded to us, didn't try and edit any of our messages, and I was hopeful that the Democrats would do the same, but they didn't. I'm not upset about it, but I can tell you this, my rank and file members who have been lifelong Democrats are not happy about it.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put anybody down, but it's like a lot of the guys that moved here from like New Jersey, New York, different places up north, they're very heavily Union and very heavily Democrat. But after they got here, they kind of got so much pushback from the rest of us that are, most of us here in my area, like I said before, it's very red. I mean, we're just not buying into all that crap, and I think that they're starting to see it now. I mean.
Yeah, there's too many sources. If they want to try to push out some propaganda and you go, I don't think that's what it is. And if you do some research and some digging and look at some legitimate sites and C-SPAN, maybe where they're actually having a hearing, right, and it's not somebody's opinion of what happened in the hearing, but the actual hearing, you will hear what took place and what's going on. And that's what we do, is we try to find this stuff and then go, yeah, that's just nothing but propaganda, because that's BS.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly right. Richard hit the nail on the head. We don't want to just push an agenda, because we're not paid by the Republicans. We're not endorsed by anything like that. We just want to get to the truth, and the truth still matters. It does to us, and apparently from our feedback, it does to most of you too.
By the way, that Teamster leader, yeah. I went, if he spoke softly, we know where you are. We know who you are. I just went, what, am I listening to Liam Neeson?
Yeah,
the tone was pretty close.
It was very close. I mean,
that's just me.
My whole thought was that you're going to wake up with a horse's head in your bed next to you. And so, yeah, but I like it. I think people are starting to wake up and like you said, in demographics that had not been previously owned by Republicans. And we don't want to claim ownership necessarily, but it's nice to have them on board. So we'll leave that there. Meanwhile, speaking of a meeting, a citizen, like many others have lately, spoke up at a Chicago City Council meeting, and it got a little hairy. So here we go.
And this is going to be the end of the Democratic Party, because this is Joe Biden's fault and Kamala Harris's fault. Is $1 billion in debt, millions of dollars that's been maldistributed to illegal immigrants who are not vetted. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows where they came from. Nobody knows their background. Coming over here, they're committing crimes. The Democratic Party claims to be the party of democracy, yet the taxpayers, the citizens, the legal citizens have been coming over here and telling the government they need to stop this, that they're allowing people to come over here and terrorize the city. And yet they've been paying millions of dollars to them and telling us that they don't have any resources for us. They're trying to blame Greg Abbott. Main person who's in fault of all of this is Joe Biden. And the second person is Kamala Harris. She was supposed to be the border czar, and she allowed all of this to come over here. Now she's just threw some big party, the DNC, while she's sitting up there talking about vibes and being in a good mood as Chicago is being terrorized under her watch. And the Democratic Party is shutting us up, trying to silence us as we're paying for all of this. We have to suffer for all of this. There's $1 billion now. The winter hasn't even come yet. We don't even know what's going to happen then.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, for Chicago, and if you saw the video, you saw a lot of the people behind him shaking their head and going, we believe everything this guy's saying, because that's exactly, they're living it.
We're living it. Yeah, we're living it. That's the same thing with that. What is it? Springfield, Ohio. And Trump said, "Oh no, they're eating their cats." And they go, "Yeah, right." No, if you've seen the actual clips and interviews of people living there, they've got video of it. They've got them where they go out and find Fluffy's head in their front yard, and the body's gone because they've eaten it, and then they will throw the skin after they've skinned them back over in their yard or something.
Oh, really?
So they had one neighbor that was doing it's, you can laugh at, oh, he's no, he's not. I'm sorry. This is what's happening, people. Yeah. It's just sad. So you've got it in these small towns where they've dumped people in. You've got it in big Chicago. They're not liking it at all.
No. And I think when you have basically an open border, you're inviting other cultures into, instead of assimilating, they are inflicting their culture into neighborhoods and stuff where, if you go to, you got the old joke where it's like you never find a stray cat outside of a Chinese restaurant, it's like, and that's just a joke. But at the same time, it's like different cultures, they eat different things. So I mean, and for, like you said, if you got Fluffy out roaming around, that it might end up being lunch for the neighbors, the people that came from Haiti next door or whatever. And it's like,
the ducks are not doing well in the park pond either.
No,
those have been shanghaied. So, people can laugh about it saying, "Oh, yeah, right." Yeah. No, that's what happens. Some of these Haitian folks are not very good people.
And God bless the Haitian people. We've got some friends that are Haitians, and I mean no disrespect to that, but it's just a different culture. And apparently they have released, just like Venezuela, they've kind of released some of the bad people to get them out of their society and push them over here on us, which of course some of the Democrats don't want to believe that stuff, but that's exactly what's happened. So
yeah, and we're not blanket covering it. That's why I said some of these people, there is just like the Venezuelan gangs that are up causing problems with stuff. They're not, everyone from Venezuela is bad. The gangs are not good, and they were let out of prison and said, "We'll let you out if you go to the United States."
Yep. And guess what? Those countries, their crime level is bottomed out because they got rid of all the bad people. It seems like there's another couple of countries I read about where they did the same thing. And Haiti may be part of that too. I honestly don't know, but it's bad either way. And Chicagoans, along with a lot of New York people too, they've gotten tired of it. So I totally understand. Hey, we are way over on a break, so let's do that. When we come back, we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? The media being bought and paid for by the Democratic Party. I mean, who would have guessed? So, hey, hang in there. We'll be right back.
The Stay Off My Lawn podcast is recorded before a live studio audience.
Temperament adds to your fun. Temple's fun for everyone. Temple freshness, smoothness too. You will love it, millions do. Makes your mouth feel fresh and clean. After meals and in between. Temple mint adds to your fun. Double mint chewing gum.
You will love the double fresh taste and double smooth chewing goodness of Double Mint gum. That's why we say that chewing Double Mint doubles the pleasure of everything you do. So remember, Double Mint
adds to your fun.
It's fun.
Double pleasure all in one. So delicious, great to chew. Treat yourself and your friends too. Tastes so good and lasts so long. Get some soon, you can't go wrong. Double Mint adds to your fun. Double Mint chewing gum.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2, and we're going to jump back into this. As conservatives or any right-leaning common sense people, that's where you want to put it. The media, of course, we know is bought and paid for by the Democratic Party. We saw that in COVID. We saw that every time there's an election cycle. But as we've discussed before, the upper echelons on the military are the same way. I think Richard mentioned during our promo, Mark Milley, definitely a puppet of the left wing of the Democratic Party. But sometimes the depth of that corruption still surprises me. But on MSNBC last week, they had a retired Army Brigadier General, Stephen Anderson, which, if you don't know Brigadier General, it's 1 star, just one step above a full bird colonel. And you don't get to that position unless you're good at politicking and kissing all kinds of butt. But anyway, he was on MSNBC, and he was on there to talk about what kind of Kamala Harris presidency would look like on the world stage. It looks surprising. So here's what he thinks.
Not only is she positive and does she bring hope and optimism, but as a black woman, the product of a mixed marriage, she will inspire millions of people throughout the world. Our credibility as a nation, that we would be able to allow, our country is so great that we're allowed a woman like that to become the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States. That is going to send a powerful message all over the world. People like Vladimir Putin are going to say, hey, wait a minute. These guys, they truly have a democratic country. They truly are representative. They truly are fighting for all their people. And Kamala Harris is a manifestation of that.
Man, what was the flavor of that Kool-Aid you drank? Oh, my God.
Criminy. Who the hell does he think he's kidding? Putin she doesn't go anywhere. Has she even been to other countries or a few?
She said she's met with 150 leaders from all over the world. I heard that the other day. But I don't think she's been anywhere. She said she's been to Europe, right? When she was talking to Lester Holt that one time.
Yeah, well, I haven't been to the border. I haven't been to Europe either. I thought it was that
she has not been to Europe. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
I think that's what it was. It's like, so, and who are these 150 leaders? Are they members of, let's say the UN that wants us gone? The one who foots the bill and helps pay their salary?
Yeah.
Just these people, it's like, do you not gonna cut off your nose to spite your face? This makes no sense to me at all.
That could have been what she was meaning. She might have been to a UN meeting once and she was in the room with 150 leaders and it's like, that's got to be close enough. I can say this in good conscience. And
well, they might have all been World Economic Forum members having lunch together. Yeah, I don't know.
It could have been World or the WHO or whatever, but that general needs to take that general that we just played the clip from, he needs to take a drink though. I mean, his mouth sounded dry and of course he wasn't enunciating anything either. It's like going, geez, it seems like if you're going to be on TV, at least be able to pronounce your words correctly. I mean,
pushing out straight, flat out propaganda that it's like, you think the rest of the world has they care about our DEI? No, I don't think they care about our DEI hire that we put in the vice presidency.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin is shaking in his boots thinking about the Kamala Harris presidency? Come on now.
I do not.
I do not think so. It's funny to me. It's like, I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin at all, but I mean, you think about Xi or think about, the guy from North Korea. Why would they be intimidated by her and Walz? Walz is probably a fourth of her intelligence level, and hers isn't impressive at all. So, I mean,
that ain't saying a whole.
It's not. It's terrible. I mean, he's as dumb as a dirty sock. But anyway, we need a little bit of comedy relief. Trump just took a bit of a speech made by Obama and turned it into a 15-second campaign ad. I love that. It's perfect. Here you go.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
There you go. I heard that the other day. Yeah. It's like, we got to play that.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I think that's one of those ones that we sent to each other.
I think it was, yeah.
I think I sent it and I sent you a message back. Neener. I sent it first and you sent it back to me like two things later.
because it's
Well,
like,
it was, yeah, we're on the same page most of the time, folks. It's really scary, and we're nowhere near each other.
I know. So it really is. I mean, even I think we've rarely even disagreed on any position at all. So it's like we just, a lot of times I'll come across something and I can't hear it where I happen to be, or if my wife's watching TV or I'm in a place where I can't really, so I'll just send it to you. Figured it's like a placeholder, and I'll listen to it later. And you've already sent it to me, so I was like, crap. Oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah, that's just our life, folks. A little tidbit that you're welcome to get in on a piece of it.
Oh yeah,
It really didn't matter, did it? Yeah.
By the way, I meant to say this earlier. If you are listening on the Oracle Talk Radio Network, we want to hear from you. We want to hear just that you're listening, and just touch base with us. Our email address is soml@duck.com, or our phone number is 770-727-6443. And of course, all that's on our website at stayoffmylawn.us. So, and of course, if you've got
those cards and letters coming in, because we'll respond to them eventually.
Eventually, yeah. And I normally try to respond to everybody that sends an email. We don't read a lot of them on the air, but it's like, if we do, send us stuff. I mean, it's great. I've got people that send us clips and stuff all the time. So sometimes we'll use it, and sometimes I forget to give a citation. So, but that's,
we do our best for the professional, hard-hitting
journalism
that we are. I don't know that I'd want to call us journalists. That's got a bad connotation.
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. It's like,
it's as bad as, you're a lawyer. You sell used cars.
Exactly.
It's
stand
kind of
up
along the same lines.
Don't cuss at me. I didn't do anything to you. But yeah, speaking of journalists and speeches, Kamala was just interviewed by Oprah, that hard-hitting journalist from Chicago. And by the way, if you're taking notes, this is how every hard-hitting interview starts in front of a live TV audience. Here we go.
Please welcome Kamala Harris.
So it's going to be a hard-hitting interview when it starts like that. And during that unbiased interview, she gave about 40 seconds, and this is our words of wisdom for the week that we did not do at the beginning because this was just so good. I want you to, if you get anything from this speech or from this 40 seconds of word salad, I want you to email us whatever you think you got from this. Here we go.
Tis time for Auntie Kamala's words of wisdom for the week.
We are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being. Because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are.
I got something out of that, I think. It might have been an aneurysm, but I got something.
Did she say anything? At least she did know to be unburdened. I thought, we're going to
waiting for that to come. Unburdened by what has been.
Which is essentially Chairman Mao's chant for when he brought in communism into China.
Right before he killed 10 million people or whatever. It was a bunch of people.
I think to date, there's something like 100 million that have been gone away with in China.
I mean, but that's kind of what that's the fingerprint of communism, is that you got to kill a lot of your own people. So we're heading down the same path. Woo, hooray. During the Oprah thing, though, she was asked by a Zoom caller, is what it looked like, somebody who called in with a question. And
the ones who were there didn't have any?
Apparently. They looked like
they had to have a plant on Zoom who couldn't make it?
It looked like 150, 200 people in the audience. I don't understand
that's
this.
a big rally for her.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, you need a porta potty for that one. But this is what the question was. It was about the cost of living and what her plans are.
We really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah. First of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
So, and let me see if I get this straight, though. Her plan is to reiterate what the problem is and not what the outcome will be.
Not how we're going to fix it. Yeah, that's and I love how she put in there these problems that have come about recently.
Just in the last 3.5 years.
Who would have caused this recently?
Who would have allowed these things to happen? Goodness gracious.
She didn't say spit. She didn't answer the question. And the person on the Zoom was going, oh, okay, what?
I guess if you're a sold out lefty, that's a good answer. I mean, I honestly don't know. It just seems like
he still doesn't have any policies out there that I know of.
I think she did copy and paste about 4 things straight from the Biden website. But of course she's for fracking now, which would be one thing.
No, she is until she wins the election. And then I've changed my mind again.
And exactly. And she was for taking up everybody's assault weapons anyway, which is still, it's still to this day, and I checked this morning, it's a made up term. It doesn't mean anything. But I mean, so if it's a made up term, you can define it whatever way you see fit.
Was the name of the company.
Armalite.
Armalite, yep. That's what it is. I was trying to thank you for that. I couldn't remember the name of it.
It was 1950s when it came out.
So, it's been around a long time, people. These didn't just manifest themselves.
No. And so, I mean, and very few of these mass shootings involve an AR-15. Some of them do, but most of them have not. They've mostly been handguns. So, but anyway, she was all for taking that. Now, I think it was on Oprah. They asked her, it's like, about the guns. He goes, well, I own a gun, and so's Tim Walz. And if you break into my house, you're going to get shot or something. I'm like since when? First of all, I'd like to know, my follow-up question would have been, what kind of gun you got? What kind of ammo you got? When's the last time?
How often do you go to the range?
Exactly.
Just because you have one doesn't mean you can. You may know how to cock it and pull the trigger, but if you don't do some practicing and know what you're doing, I'm sorry, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It's going to look like one of those episodes from what was the movie? Where they were, one was behind one trash can, one's behind the other, and they were shooting it. Nobody hit anything.
Oh.
They were.
That's just about every TV show, every cop show now.
Well, it was. They were making a spoof of cop shows.
Oh, I see.
Leslie Nielsen.
Police Story.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good Lord, I could not think of the name of it. Yeah, it was just like, are you kidding me?
Those kind of went downhill after the airplane movies went away.
Yeah,
but that was good though. Yeah.
But yeah, they were having a shootout, and one was, you'd see him jump up and shoot, and then they were over to this one, over to that one, and then they pulled back, and it was 2 trash cans next to each other, and they couldn't
hit. Yeah.
No.
But I bet that's probably how she would go. But yeah, there's just no way that she goes to the range or anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dr. Ben Carson, real quick before we go to break, was asked about on Tucker Carlson's show what he thinks of the Kamala for President campaign. And it might be what you think, but he's got some pretty good insight.
Do you think that she can win?
Absolutely. She can win. This is going to be a great test of the power of the media to take someone who formerly was universally disliked and transform them into a godlike figure. And they will use everything that they have to try to do that. The question is, are the American people smart enough to see through it?
See, He's got some great insight on that. It's like,
That's exactly what went on. She had a 28% approval rating, and then all of a sudden, we're going to put her in for the presidential to run for president now because we're going to do this coup and get rid of Biden. And all of a sudden, now she is just so wonderful. Yeah, this is a female. Oh, she's just. I have no problem voting for a female. We've talked about it. Nope. If Tulsi Gabbard was running, I'd probably vote for her. I don't care that it's a female. I don't care if they were pink, purple, orange, or green. I could care less. If you're qualified and you have the right stuff to deal with what needs to be done, that's who I'm probably going to vote for.
Absolutely. Remember, they were trying to push Condoleezza Rice years ago to run for president because talk about overqualification. That woman is like way overqualified, but she didn't want anything to do with it because of the effects it has on your family. And maybe that's, I still think that she would have been great.
I would have voted for her.
Absolutely. And I think Tulsi Gabbard certainly would have been a good choice too. I think she'll be part of this next administration. But, the whole thing is, I was thinking about this all week, last week, about what would happen if one of these whack jobs actually did take out President Trump. What would actually, how would we go forward at least on the Republican side of the ticket? And somebody answered that because the convention has already happened, then J.D. Vance is actually part of the ticket now, and it would automatically go to him. And I guess he would have to choose a vice president. But it would be really ugly, though. I think the whole society would just, I don't know. They need to protect him. That's all I can say.
Yep.
So anyway, when we come back, we're going to listen to podcaster Matt Kim. He points out some really good failures of the Biden-Harris regime. Yeah, he's very good. And especially the failures of Comrade Harris. So when we come back.
Hey, this is Kendra Rains, and I love these two old guys. That's why I listen to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast. And you should too.
You got a hankering to see some lightly diseased farm animals while dangling from a Ferris wheel? Then head on down to the Westchester County Fair. Our carnival rides were voted least rickety and most assembled 3 years running. And all of our carnival workers have 8 or more fingers. That's the Westchester guarantee. Plus, our porta-johns are extra deep to accommodate mountains of partially digested corn dogs, barbecue fat patties, and hog-fried buffalo necks. The Westchester County Fair. Come before 9 a.m. every Saturday to get a complimentary kissing horse.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn. Let me write this down. 30. And a little
behind the scenes look, folks.
A little housekeeping we're doing here. But podcaster Matt Kim for this round here. He points out some more failures of the Biden-Harris administration. One or two specifically. I think we need these reminders every now and then. So here we go.
Where's the money? Last year, I made a video talking about Joe Biden's plan to bring high-speed internet to rural America. $42 billion for the BEAD program, Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. Tasked to implement this program, you guessed it, the broadband czar herself, Vice President Kamala Harris. $42 billion to get rural America faster streaming. In my video, I called it a waste of time. The program was supposed to help 8 million people. Divided into the $42 billion was nearly $5,000 per person. Should have just sent everyone a Starlink at approximately $500 each and saved the American taxpayer $36 billion. But of course, no one listens to common sense and logical solutions and instead moved on with the $42 billion BEAD program under the helm of Kamala. Well, so far, 0 people have received this new high-speed internet. Additional climate change mandates on infrastructure projects, prioritizing government-owned networks over private investment, and over-regulation, plus just piss-poor leadership, has contributed to the colossal failure. Reminds me of when the Biden-Harris administration committed $7.5 billion to build EV chargers, but only built 8. Except this one is significantly worse. $42 billion, 0 new broadband connections. And I struggle with this. Can't decide which it is, or which is worse. Are they incompetent, or are they stealing?
I mean, it depends on where the money is, I guess. I don't know. There needs to be.
What do you do with 42 billion? Who's got it? Where's it going? Is it going to all the regulations and regulators? And you got to do this. I'm someone who lives out in the boonies, and the only way I get my internet, which is it's pretty solid because we don't generally have any issues with me dropping out or whatever.
Right.
It comes from a tower into an antenna that I have on my roof to get the signal so that I have internet. Otherwise, I can't get any internet any other way. I'm out here in the sticks. There's nobody within a half a mile of me.
Yeah, I mean, and it obviously works pretty good for you to be able to stream like you do and no glitches. I mean, unless you're having a bad winter storm, I would imagine. But
if it's wet snow and it blows right onto the dish, sometimes it sticks on there. So then it becomes an issue. But it's normally I just don't have any problems, but it's not cheap either. It's not super fast, but it works quite well.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have it, but at $85 a month for what most people would go, that's all you got? Yeah, it's 25 up and 10 down, I believe.
And that's wired?
Or, I mean, 25 down and 10 up. I got it backwards.
I gotcha. See, I pay $85 for because I live in a neighborhood a month for AT&T fiber, and it's wired. It's 1,000 up and 1,000 down. So I mean, it's.
Oh, that's right. I remember telling you what I thought of that once. I remember the words that I used.
Yeah, that was. I do remember receiving that too.
I love where I'm out here on my little 3.5 acre plot of dirt, so it's fine. But they've done nothing for people out in the country. And if you've ever had satellite, it is a fate worse than death.
Yeah, we had it.
It works, but that's about it.
I do think though that the main problem is the money gets allocated to these programs like the charging stations and everything. I heard Pete Buttigieg was talking about this on TV the other day and said, "Oh, we're right on track at 8."
Yeah, right.
What do you mean we're right on track?
For what? You need more money in your bank account?
How many states do you think there are? I mean, it's 8. Oh boy. But there should be an investigation where the money is, how much of it has been spent already. I know Congress is busy investigating a lot of stuff, but I think somebody's getting rich.
I heard at one time it was 8 and 4 of them weren't working.
Oh, really?
I mean, that sounds like government, but
they're probably hooked up to a diesel generator.
Yeah, I saw one of the diesel generator hiding behind a sign for like 6 Tesla free charge
Exactly.
And the electricity's coming from a diesel running generator just running away over there.
Oh boy. Well, anyway, if you wondered how we got here, and we've talked about this. Actually, I think we played this clip a couple of times before in the 2 years. We've almost been on the air 2 years now. I know.
Yeah, you wonder how we got here, how we got to do not pass go, do not collect $200. They won't let us go all the way around the board all of a sudden.
No, they won't. They won't for some reason. But I mean, how we got here as far as like society and how we have so many indoctrinated kids in college and just the young people living in the suburbs now. I mean, it seems like they're getting the demographic is getting older now, and so many younger 20s and 30s people are still left leaning and will not listen to reason or common sense. Well, this has all been part of a plan that has been started back in the 50s. And if you don't want to believe it, we've got a clip from a guy, Yuri Bezmenov. Unfortunately, he passed away back in 1993, but I think this was in the 70s. He defected to Canada and was interviewed. He's an ex-KGB agent and a journalist in Russia, and he talks at length on what the plan was by the Soviets. This is quite lengthy, but listen very carefully because this is exactly what we're seeing.
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking with every second.
Yeah, I was wrong about the 70s. I guess it was the 80s because he mentioned Andropov and Mondale, so I had to be in the early to mid 80s.
We were talking earlier that if he died at 53, it would have had to have been the 80s. Being born in 39.
Yeah, he died in 93.
So, yeah, he defected to Canada, and I don't know what he died of or what the problem was, but I'm going to guess somebody found him.
It could have been something nefarious, maybe.
There's a possibility, distinct possibility.
But you think about it, as he talked about the demoralization, and it's like no matter what you show to people, you show them. And this guy is obviously was such a student of history and understood that if you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it. And I don't know who said that phrase to begin with, but it's so true. I mean, none of us know what is coming because not the left people here in this country know what's coming because they don't know what's happened. And this has all happened. He talked about Afghanistan and the Sandinistas in Nicaragua and all these things. These things have happened. Grenada, if you remember back in the 80s when all this stuff happened in Grenada.
Yep. That was on an episode of the Tim Allen show where he had the outdoor man.
Yeah.
I can't think of the names of the shows. It's terrible anymore. Anyhow, when they went into a place where the vets hang out at, he goes, well, your guys with the gray beards and the ponytails, those are your fellas drinking Mai Tais. They're from Grenada. And was pointing out the different groups, and your hearing aids and that are from. So,
yeah, that was a beautiful island country before all the crap happened. But
he couldn't have said it any better. I mean, you don't believe it? Well, that's what they were doing, and that's what they've done, because you got people going into universities, and these kids think that they have the rights to run the loony bin and say, we don't want this conservative person to come in here and talk.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're the enemy. You don't want a different opinion? That's not what universities used to be about.
And if you watch any of those Charlie Kirk videos, I think is what you're kind of referencing. Charlie Kirk goes to these different campuses and encourages dialogue. It's like just because we don't agree doesn't mean we can't talk. We can't reason together. I mean, I don't understand why not, but most of them are not interested in dialogue at all.
No.
Name calling, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you're whatever. And it's like that seems to be the way it goes.
Had that at a local university here where these kids managed to rally around and get rid of a coffee shop that was on campus that's a local in the town, and they're conservative. Well, when they found that out, they can't be on our campus.
Of course.
Well, they just finished after 2 years a lawsuit, and now the university owes them about $10 million.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, what you did was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, just because somebody, I don't want anybody to go out of business because they happen to vote liberal. I don't care. But I mean, to me, that's
you can have your opinion.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not forcing me to tell me I have to do what you say, then we're fine. If you can have whatever opinion you want, I don't have an issue with it. When you start telling me I'm wrong and I have to believe the way you do, now we got a problem.
And that's where a lot of these companies do try to kind of promote all that stuff. And it's like, and I got into a little bit of a tiff with somebody online last week or the week before about Taylor Swift telling people how to vote. And, I don't like it when Ted Nugent goes into his concerts and tells people how to vote. That's not his job. And I agree with Ted Nugent on just about everything, but I just don't think that's where you should be. If you're a celebrity, you're whatever, don't tell people. I don't tell anybody how to vote. You don't tell anybody. And this is kind of what we do.
Now, here's some of the facts, and you can listen to them. And that's an actual interview. It's not hearsay. You heard it from, as it were, the horse's mouth.
Yep.
And not the other end, which is what the propaganda machine professes to do.
The schmucks that he likes to call them. Yeah.
From the northbound horse, it's coming from the southbound end.
Yeah. There you go.
So, anyway.
It doesn't smell very good either way. When we come back, we're going to listen to former EPA Chief of Staff Mandy Gunasekara. That's as far as I can go.
Very nice. You did that way better than I did earlier.
She was talking to Congress last week, and she had some very biting things to say, and it was fantastic. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. More of the Stay Off My Lawn podcast is coming up.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 4. If you made it this far, woohoo! Pull up your Depends, and we'll just let it fly. The former EPA Chief of Staff, Mandy Gunasekara, she authored a book, a best-selling book called "Y'all Fired: A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp." It's a little bit of a long title, but she testified in front of Congress last week. And if you haven't seen this video, Richard, explain the video.
Oh, this is the best. Don't necessarily watch her talk. The thing I saw was a split screen with Jamie Raskin, who was the one who introduced her. And I think he looked at her like, oh, it's this little blonde bimbo, and she's going to say a few things, and she's lovely to look at, and we'll move on.
How
He's
misogynistic.
just grinning with a S-eating grin on his face, and he's just thinking, oh, he's got this in the bag. And the longer she talks, watch his face. That smile just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, and pretty soon he's almost scowling at her.
And
it's hilarious.
You can tell that grin that he had at the beginning kind of got under her skin because she went right after him to begin with. She also clears up any lies about Project 2025 and its lack of ties to President Trump and other things.
Oh, and he was smirking big about that because he goes, yeah, we've been pushing it. We know he's not part of it, but that's okay. We're going to keep lying to you anyway.
We know it's a big
And then
lie.
the more she talked about it, it just kept falling. He didn't get his way, and he is about as slimy as they come.
Oh, he is. And we were talking off the air. It's like there's about 4 of them that it would be so hard not to just punch him in the face if I was. But anyway, she clears up a lot of stuff. She brings up a lot of things that we need to be reminded of as we walk into this season. The early voting has started, I think, in Pennsylvania already, and I think we start our early voting here in a couple of weeks here in Georgia.
Wow. We don't do that.
It's the fourth Monday before the election day is when our early voting starts here in Georgia. But that was brought up on the radio the other day talking about early voting. And a lot of, I think some states, New Hampshire doesn't do it. They only do on that day, and I'm sure there are other states that do the same thing. But the benefit of early voting is that if something happens on election day, you get a flat tire, you're sick, you've got a kid that's sick, you've got things, life happens. So if you can bank that vote and get it in there, it actually also helps the Republican Party if they're going to be, since they can see that you've already voted, they can target their campaigning calls and everything to people who have not voted instead of you that have already, you're totally committed to the conservative movement and you're not gonna vote any other way. They don't have to waste any money or time on you, and maybe talk to somebody who is on the fence. So,
yeah.
I think
Well, we don't really have early voting. We do have absentee, but it's handled exactly the same way as if it was election day. You go in, we have to show ID, have for years in Idaho. You show ID to vote to make sure, and then you sign your register and, okay, yep, I've done it. They do all that. And then you go and it's a voting thing just like any other time. We were going on a family reunion thing up north in Idaho, and it's the first time we'd ever voted absentee. The wife checked it all out, and that's all we got to do is go to the county seat, and okay, no big deal, like 20 minutes away. So we go and do that, and it was handled and was taken care of just as if you went to a polling place. It was no different. There was a lot of making sure you had the right ID, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't know if we might have stayed over an extra day or two, and it would have caused us to be late to come back to vote. So just to be sure, like you're saying, it's 6 hours away where we were at, and it's like we're supposed to come home on Monday afternoon. Well, if something happened, the car broke down, who knows what, now I'm screwed.
Yep, exactly.
So we just decided to, rather than not worry about it and have to hustle back, we went and took care of it. And it was done properly. So.
I think somebody brought that up too, weather-wise. I think it was in northern Nevada. Nevada, they call it Nevada. Yeah, sorry, but there was a snowstorm on election day in 2020, I think it was, and they said that it kept people from getting to the voting booth because the weather was so bad. Because that's where Lake Tahoe and all that area is, and they can get hammered with snow up there.
They can get a lot of it in a very short period of time.
So, so you just don't know if you do have the opportunity. I fully suggest that you do. But anyway, coming back to this Mandy person, she has a lot to say. So let's let her say it.
I have a prepared opening statement that I'll get into in just a second. But Ranking Member Raskin, you reiterated and have created a boogeyman that just isn't there. I did author the EPA chapter on Project 2025. But in the course of that, I did not work with President Trump, with any of the people who work for him directly or his campaign. And it is very misleading to suggest that there's any coordination there because I can personally tell you it did not happen. And I am not vying for a position in the next administration. I've actually left DC and I've moved to a small town in Mississippi where I interact every day with people who live outside this bubble of gaslighting and misleading. And they actually are dealing with the consequences caused by policy decisions of this administration that isn't defined by progress, but defined by creating unnecessary hardship. I understand why it's hard to think about the political realm prior to President Trump, but the Heritage Foundation has been very involved in pushing forward conservative policies for quite a while. And the Mandate for Leadership, the latest iteration, it's the 9th edition. This is a project that has been put out every few years since 1981. So it's been around for quite some time, and again, is more committed to representing the position of the broader conservative movement than any one candidate or person. And I understand why there is the creation of this boogeyman, because your leading candidate is one running away from policy actions she has taken that make Americans' lives much more difficult. In fact, Vice President Kamala Harris was recently asked on national television the following question: when it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? She said a lot of words, but she did not answer the question, because the reality is most Americans are not better off. Most Americans are struggling to deal with expensive gas, expensive electricity, and high-cost goods and groceries that have created financial burdens that Americans have had to deal with throughout the Biden-Harris administration. Their day one energy policies are a key driver behind Americans' increasing financial distress. From President Biden's promise to end all fossil fuels, alongside Vice President Kamala Harris's commitment to ban fracking, Americans have suffered under their radical agenda. From the energy perspective, this has included locking up development of resources and demonizing industries, mainly coal, oil, and natural gas, that still provide 80% of our daily energy needs. A recent report from the Institute of Energy Research has been tracking these actions, and they've found that since January 2021, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and congressional Democrats have taken over 250 actions that make it harder to produce energy in America. This has included stopping construction of the Keystone XL pipeline that immediately cut 11,000 domestic jobs, including thousands of union jobs, issuing a moratorium on new oil and gas permits on federal lands, greenlighting Putin's Nord Stream 2 pipeline while shuttering the development of U.S. pipelines along the East Coast, rejoining the disastrous Paris Climate Agreement that is squeezing out U.S. jobs and increasing the regulatory burden on American companies, launching a war on household appliances that are now 34% more expensive than 15 years ago, blocking the Twin Metals mine, shuttering U.S. steelworker jobs in Minnesota and cutting off access to critical minerals that we need more and more of. And instead, this administration is making us more and more dependent on China. Slowing permits for LNG facilities from an average of 7 weeks to 11 months, then completely halting permits for new LNG facilities altogether. Mandating that Americans drive electric vehicles despite growing market resistance, infrastructure shortfalls, and a preference for more affordable and reliable gas-powered vehicles. Americans are dealing with the consequences of these actions every time they put gas in their car, pay their electricity bills, or go to the grocery store.
And if you remember, we are and you may not know this, but we are the #1 exporter in the world of LNG, liquid natural gas. And we export mostly to Europe and Turkey. So they're hurting because we are doing all this regulation and all this
They shut off the port of call that a lot of it isn't it like Louisiana?
Louisiana,
or something?
yep. That's exactly where it is.
Port of call where they load these ships up with that. No, you can't do that now. Why would you do that? Why? I don't understand. I mean, right. You're going to allow fracking? Sure you are. When you're part of all this that's happened? No, I don't believe it any farther than I could throw her.
No. And, she brought up so many good things. I mean, it's like the Keystone pipeline, how short our memories are. It's like, that was day one. That was the executive order, 11,000 people out of work. And like she said, some of that is union workers. Teamsters and other union workers pay attention to that kind of stuff.
You stopped building the border wall where the money had already been allocated for it. You just stopped it. Wait, it was passed. I don't know how that went through without some oversight, but whatever.
Because when you're in charge, you can do whatever you want, apparently. But it's gotten to the point where I think we really need to pay attention what she's talking about on this whole thing. And, just remember what's been done the last 3.5 years. It shouldn't be that difficult.
She did such a wonderful job of keeping it succinct and staying with nothing but facts. And she was part of the group, and she got tired of all the backstabbing and all the crap that goes on in DC. It is a slime pit. And she just went up. I'm happy being in northern Mississippi now where she resides, and I don't have to do that. I want nothing to do with being in another administration.
Yep, absolutely. And, and to be fair, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and northern Georgia, we all look a lot alike, and it's beautiful area. So if you haven't ever visited, then I expect a check in the mail from the tourist. But anyway, we need a palate cleanser after that. Paul Harvey and the rest of the story is about another TV personality from years gone by. Now, you heard this. Did you know who he was talking about?
No, there's been a couple of them. I'm going, I couldn't even come up with a hint of who they were talking about.
I had no idea. So let's see if you can can guess this before he tells you. Here's Paul Harvey and the rest of the story.
The rest of the story. In all New York, there was no drama school more prestigious than the John Murray Anderson Robert Milton School of the Theater and Dance. One could tell at a glance. One could feel its importance from its East 58th Street facade, its elaborate wrought iron gates, its elegant foyer with parquet floors and wing chairs and tables, and of course its founders and faculty. Producer John Murray Anderson was a theatrical legend on 2 continents. Robert Milton and David Burton and James Light and Frederick Stanhope were immensely respected theatrical directors, and so it was that the imposing Georgian front on East 58th became a mecca for innumerable aspiring actors and directors and playwrights and scenic and costume designers, and one shy teenager named Diane Belmont. To many of the students, Diane was known simply as the girl in the back, for she was so intimidated by the talented people around her that she often stood in the back of the class or behind stage scenery and watched their performances in quiet awe. The girl in the back. Among the gifted pupils was young Betty Davis, a theatrical firebrand with original ideas and a forceful delivery that riveted the attention of all who saw her. Diane, the girl in the back, wished with all of her heart to be like Betty, but she knew she never could. And so eventually did everybody else in the school. But finally one day co-founder Robert Milton called Diane into his office. Clearly he was exasperated. "What on earth brought you here in the first place?" he asked. Well, Diane thought for a moment, but she could not bring herself to tell Mr. Milton the rest of the story. For only a short while ago, she'd been a soda jerk at Walgreens. And then after having been fired for leaving the banana out of a banana split, she thought she would try another line of work, something exciting like modeling or acting. Well, Diane did get a part-time job modeling for fashion designer Hattie Carnegie. And that's when she changed her name to Diane Belmont, but she had always loved musical theater and thought that if only she were properly trained, she might be good enough to appear on Broadway someday. That last part, that's what Diane told Mr. Milton. The renowned director scowled. He thundered, "You will never be an actress, young lady. Not on Broadway nor any place else." And he proceeded to enumerate the reasons: her frozen, awkward manner, her impenetrable shyness, her inescapable Middle Western accent, her obvious lack of talent. She would always be the girl in the back. Mr. Milton said, "I'm writing a letter to your mother." He said, "I'm going to confide to her that your tuition is a waste of money, that your presence in the school is a waste of time. And now," he added, "please go home." And Diane, utterly humiliated, but believing every word Mr. Milton had said, went home to her mother and spent weeks thereafter moping, sulking around the house, writing lugubrious poetry. And oh yes, she changed her name again. She gave up the Diane Belmont and went back to her real name, Lucille Ball. Only now you know the rest of the story.
Gosh, I had no idea. No idea. And she turned out to be...
everybody always thinks, oh, well, they're a star. It just came naturally. You just step on and I'm going to be a star. I've arrived. No, it's not how it works. It's called lots of hard work.
You did sound like Betty Davis when you did that. But no, you're right, though. I mean, I don't think people understand the hard work. And we know people in our industry that have a lot of natural talent, but they don't work on it, so they don't really go anywhere. And then you've got people that you would never guess that they were voiceover people, and they work hard and they hone the craft, and they are very successful. So, but anyway, I did meet Lucille Ball back in 1980. Gosh, what year was that? 87. It was a Bob Hope show, and she had started kind of losing it at that point. So she didn't really speak much. They brought her out on stage and then brought her out. And, I spoke to her for a second. She smiled and, that was about it. And we got to speak to everybody at that Bob Hope show. So that was kind of fun, but it was sad to see her be like that because we know her from I Love Lucy. So, but anyway, we hope you were somewhat informed and had fun like we did. Don't forget, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Smart Speaker, Rumble, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget, if you can do this on your drive home Eastern time, it's 5 p.m. on the Oracle Talk Radio Network.com. Scroll down, there'll be a play button, and we're there every Thursday at 5 p.m. Or you can just go to our good old website at stayoffmylawn.us for all our past and present episodes.
And God willing, we'll see you next week, folks.
Thanks again for listening. Toodles. Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Well, mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.